Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I am back. It is Brandy Mabra, and I am excited for this episode. We are going to be talking about how to invest in your private practice. This is a good one.
Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love.
So I am trying to think from a place of abundance when it comes to your practice. So I always say that your practice is a true company. Let me say that again. Your practice is a true company. It is a business. It is not a hobby. It is not where you've created a job for yourself, even though you have a job as the CEO. It is a true company that you have to run, and you need to make your practice work for you. And I always say, work your practice, right? So sometimes clients will come to me and they're trying to make more money inside their practice. Work your practice. What can happen inside of your practice to help you make more money? A lot of the folks, and including myself, is like it becomes easier when you're making key investments along the way to set yourself up for success as you're building and scaling your practice and growing. And so one of the questions I always get asked is, of course, when is it time to hire? That there's two times, like two big jumps, I'll say, in your business. The first one is when you hire your very first team member. So even if it's a contractor, if it's a VA that's working a couple hours, or if it's a real in-person front desk person, that is a monumental hire, right? But that investment is so worth in the investment. And I am going to speak to the common myth of where people will say like, oh, I'm going to lose money if I hire an admin person, so I just automatically always hire a provider. No, you lose money when you don't hire an admin person because you are the admin and you're expensive as an admin. You're like a very well paid or should be well paid admin. So the admin piece is important. The second most monumental hire inside of your practice or expansion inside of your practice is when you hire your first leadership person. So those are the two big times, right? And I guess a third one would be when you hire like the second provider, or when you start to replace yourself as a provider or as a clinician in the practice. However, when we think about the leadership person that you're hiring, that's a game changer, because that means that leadership hat that you're wearing, that managerial hat that you're wearing, is now getting ready to be put onto someone else that can actually take over with conversations with the team, that can help lead the team, can help hold expectations, can add in additional accountability, and it makes so much easier. So when we think about, again, that freedom piece, your practice running without you, having a good leader is part of that equation. You can train up a leader. So a couple episodes back, I talked to that. Like, so even when we're thinking about the admin, the first hire, the admin hire, what the possibility is with that person if you get the right person, or if how you're thinking about that position. But the expansion of your practice needs to be a return on investment all along the way, right? So when you're setting yourself up financially, then we're thinking about the capital of a person, but it actually helps you financially because you're able to make more money. And if you do it right, it actually helps you have more profit at the end of the day too. Like the return on investment definitely helps you make more money. So from a revenue perspective, but also it's going to allow for you to be more profitable. So you have to be in a place of being willing to make the financial investment. And in this regard would be team, in order for you to expand the way that it makes sense. Another way to expand would be literally expansion by locations. So when we're thinking about the in-person brick and mortar, the expansion comes with the second location, third location, fourth location, fifth location, whatever, however many locations. And that return on investment is priceless, right? So that is a true scaling strategy where you're duplicating with what's working, hopefully, with what's working. If you're not in a place where the first location's working, like it feels very chaotic, the team doesn't feel like it's in alignment, I am still chained to my desk, I'm still like employee of the practice, do not open up a second location, or be very mindful as you're stepping into it, and you need to be in a position where you start to weed yourself out, right? And that you're really replacing yourself as the provider in order for you to get the second and third location. So you can be fully in leadership mode. So some of the budget, like there's budgeting mistakes that I see along the way when we're thinking about the investment piece where people don't budget accordingly, right? And so when you get to a certain stage of business growth, at this point in time, we have the private practice CEO growth stages. It's a roadmap that all of our clients follow. Like we've put them into a specific growth stage. And this is exactly when we think about the freedom formula. This is exactly what they need to do from a vision standpoint, from a team accountability standpoint, from making sure that their metrics are profitable, that there's synergy happening within their team, and that the workflows or the systems and processes that are happening within their practice make sense. And this goes from 0 all the way up to 20 million. And one of the things that we are talking about at every stage is making sure that budgeting makes sense, right? And so you get to a place where you have to start moving according to a budget and a forecast. If you do not have a budget, then you're moving blindly, right? So you have no targets that you're hitting. You are not sure if you're managing your expenses appropriately. You are not setting the expectation for how much revenue that you want to come in. You're not able to create like a scenario. So if you want 40% profit, what needs to happen inside of the practice exactly for it to be profitable, right? So it's important for you to recognize that the budget and the forecasting is important, right? Right down to visits, encounters, sessions, procedures, surgeries, office visits, whatever you want to call it, you need to have a marker or a metric that you're following to make sure that things are on point month after month, year after year. So even Tuesday, we talked about this, where when you have ebbs and flows inside of your practice, you can budget for your ebbs and flows. So at the time of this podcast, some of you might be feeling the quote unquote summer slowdown. There might be a distinct difference in how the behaviors of your clients and patients are showing up inside of your practice. You can budget for that. You can forecast for that. It doesn't just happen. It's just like, oh no, it just happened to me. All the patients went away. All the schedules are light. Well, what are you doing in the plenty times that can set you up for the lean times? When you have a budget, you can automatically see there's a dip when it comes to our visits. There's a dip when it comes to the amount of people that we're seeing. And you can budget for it. You can budget for the expenses, how you're working with your team for time off. All of these things can be forecasted. So it's important for you to understand the essence of it. So the mistakes that I see are lack of clarity for what's happening when it comes to the budget, not having proactive conversations with the team. So all of a sudden you have multiple providers off and you didn't anticipate that, and now you can't make payroll, or you're having a hard time make payroll, or you promised PTO, pay time off, to folks when really technically you don't have the money to pay them and they're not working. Another mistake that I see is not having the right accountant who can actually do the budget and forecasting and understands what that looks like outside of, oh, if you hire this person, then they can make you X amount of dollars. Like when we think about a true budget and a true forecast, there's like spreadsheets. Like it's like a whole thing that you look at month after month, and then you compare your current financials to the spreadsheet. Were you on track, or were you off track? So those are probably the top 3 mistakes that I see in private practice owners not setting themselves up for success. So mistake number 1 is lack of clarity for what's going to happen inside the practice. So there's seasonality when it comes to practices. So like the ebbs and flows. Do you know what will happen and what expenses can you afford to pay during summer slowdown? And are you prepared for that? Or the holiday times, right? So if you don't have the budget that you need or the forecast that you need with that clarity, that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is not having the right financial partner with you that can actually give you a budget and a forecast that you can follow, and that you are showing up prepared when it comes to the targets and the metrics that you need to pay attention to as you're growing and scaling your practice. There's a really great episode that you can actually go listen to with Carla Titus, like for that, if you want to go check that out. And then mistake number 3 is that you don't set yourself up for a runway, right? So when we're thinking about setting money aside and budgeting for that money to be aside, regardless what's happening in the practice and where your financial status is. So if you are in a place where you can maybe put 1 to 2% of like your revenue to the side, maybe you can't do a full 10%, maybe you can do, or 5%, maybe you can do 2%, where you're just starting the habit, right? You're engaging in the habit, or you're not stopping the habit just because you've hit maybe a bumpy road in your practice. So it's important for you to have that runway in times of plenty and in times of lean. What do you do when you're in the midst of maybe playing small in your practice, but you know that there is a bold strategic move that you need to make and it's calling your name? Well, the first thing that you can do is get very clear on your vision. There's power. There's two things that I see happen is where folks are very clear on their vision, but the vision feels so scary that they feel safe in the small space because it's familiar. There's the comfort. I know what to expect here. You guys know what I'm talking about. Compared to I don't know what the big investment is I need to make and I don't have the clarity. So I always say go back to the vision because the vision can be big enough to inspire you and you need to pull. Like if you're sitting here like, oh no, I know exactly the next strategic investment that I need to make, very clear, and it's scary, then use that to empower you. Use that when you step into that vision. So if you sit there, you close your eyes and you start to feel, because I always say, like, if there is a big vision, you're going to feel the goosebumps, you're going to feel the butterflies, it's going to inspire you, it should motivate you, and it should give you the big jolt that you need. And hopefully from an energy standpoint, then it's going to inspire you to go ahead and take that action that you need for that strategic investment. Or if you're sitting in the boat like, I don't know, I really don't know what that strategic investment is, then you need to sit with yourself, close your eyes, and put yourself in an inspiring space so that way you can get clear on what that next strategic investment is for you. When you decide to move forward, then of course, setting yourself up for what is the best outcome. So if it is like my next strategic investment is I'm going to go buy a building, amazing. What do you need in order to make sure that you're set up for success, right? So that would be bringing in a commercial real estate, making sure that your lawyer's on point, making sure that you've had conversations with your accountant, making sure that you look at all the programs that might be available to you. So that way you can not have to use all of your own money when it comes to real estate and you're buying a building. It could be where you are having empowered conversations with your team on what do we need if we move into a new building, into a new location, what's missing at this existing location or what's missing now, and what would be great in the new location, right? Getting very clear on what that 3-5-year vision is. So if there's certain service lines that you want to offer, if there's a certain team size that you want to move into, if there's a certain specialty that you want to bring in, all of that is part of that vision. And so whenever you're making a big, bold move or you're wanting to take a bigger strategic investment, the details matter, right? So that way you can plan for the details and make sure that you have the right partners in order to make sure that you're set up for success. So I think that that's really powerful. If you are not clear, sit quiet until it becomes clear. Or if you can just get very clear, because most times when you have the vision or you're playing small and you're trying to figure out what to do next, oftentimes people make the mistake of thinking, I have to know all of the steps. I have to know all of the, like everything that's going to happen here on out. And a lot of times the only thing you know is step 1 of the full staircase. And that's really all that we're guaranteed. Like we'll see the first step. So with that vision, as soon as you get clear on the first step, then set yourself up for success for the first step, right? So if you sit there and you become like, you know what, actually, after thinking about it, I do want to buy a building, then great. Then now you're doing whatever you need to do in order for that first step, not the 20 steps, but the first steps. So just take the bite-sized chunks because the big vision will feel scary. I always say it's a red flag if it doesn't feel scary. Like if you are sitting there like, oh, that's super easy, like no problem. That's not big enough, right? So you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success and that you are stretching yourself and that you're putting yourself in a place that feels uncomfortable because that's where the excitement happens. You know, how good will you feel when you accomplish the goal and you fully step into that next level vision And then guess what? You get to that next level vision and then you're on to, oh, there's something else that I want to do. And that's good. That's part of the journey. So if you are in a place where you're like, man, I'm really ready for that next stage of business growth. I have done some beautiful things in my practice. I've hired in my practice. I got a team in my practice. And now I need to know what to do next, or I am struggling with what to do next. Then your solution is the Private Practice CEO Lunch and Learn 5-day series. So this is where you get to hang out with me for an hour to 2 hours a day, where I'm able to coach you, I'm able to give you real life training and be able to set you up for success. So if you're looking for more time back on your calendar, you want to make more money, you want to definitely come from a place of adding more profit to your practice, and you're ready to get out of the weeds and step into truly owning your CO status, then the Private Practice Lunch and Learn is for you. So go ahead and see the show notes. It's happening from July 28th to August 1st. So it's the perfect thing for you to step into Q3 strong and to have some amazing momentum as we're going into the second half of the year. So go ahead, see the show notes so that way you can sign up, and I will see you hopefully in the Lunch and Learn. All right, see you guys next time. Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.